What's up, my financially intentional people? You are in for a treat because we are joined today by Amy Minkley, and she has an incredible story. But what's more incredible is that she's exposing so many more people to the FI community, to the fire community, not the financially intentional community, not to be mistaken, but the financially independent community with her retreats in Bali. And she is having a retreat towards the end of the summer or in fall this year in Bali that you guys need to know about. But what is more interesting is really just Amy's story because she's just an incredible human being. But I'll let you be the judge of that yourself. What's up, Amy? How are you?
I am fantastic. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me on, Nasima.
Of course, of course. And Amy, I just kind of want to go through your backstory because you're someone who has been living the expat life in Asia for so many years, but you're a native Texan, right?
Yes, I am.
So we want to know, inquiring minds want to know, like, how did you end up living in Asia so long? And then how did that translate into your journey into FI?
Sure. Yeah, I never planned to live in Asia for so long. I went abroad right after graduating from my undergrad degree. I studied what I loved, which was history, and there aren't a lot of career prospects in history. So I decided to go abroad. My sister had gone abroad. She's a decade older than me. And so I used to get her letters in the mail when I was a little girl. And that gave me the dream of I could go abroad for a few years, teach English, and I thought I would go abroad for 1 or 2 years to Japan, and I ended up staying 4 and loving it. I mean, it opened my eyes up to Asia and the whole world, and I just saw a whole new realm of possibility, which I hadn't seen in rural Texas. Surprise, surprise. So,
Surprise, surprise.
yeah, so it changed my life. 4 years was great. And then from there, I ended up learning about international school teaching and staying abroad for since 2001 at this stage. So it's been a long time.
Wow. 2001. So that
Hmm.
is 22 years now, huh?
Hmm. Yes.
Wow. So wow, you were abroad. Like, I mean, like, how was like that culture shock from coming from like Texas to like living in Japan? What was the shift like there?
I anticipated that I would have a hard time because I love community and I'm close to my family. And so I remember going over there thinking, I don't know if this is going to work. My aunt said, well, you might come back early and that's okay. but but I loved it. You know, it can really vary. So I don't want to give listeners this picture like it's all rosy and every time you go
Right.
abroad and move abroad, it might be rosy. But for me, I was really lucky. I was hired by the Japanese government to teach in Japanese high schools. And I was working with a lot of people. It's the largest teacher abroad program in the world, 7,000 teachers every year. And
Wow.
so I was working with people from Jamaica and Australia, New Zealand, and the UK, and all over Singapore. So I had friends from all over the world. We were all mostly just out of undergrad, and we all came at the same time. And so there was this sense of community. And I developed lifelong friendships, people that I'm still in touch with. In fact, I'm going to see some friends next week that I've been in touch with for 20 years. So it was a great experience, and community really made it for me. And then the Japanese people are lovely. And that program, if any of your listeners are interested and they just kind of want to have a little break from their life, you don't have to have a teaching degree, but it could be a fun experience to go and teach in Japan for a year or two, even mid-career, just to try something new. And there were people also that I worked with that weren't just starting off, right out of undergrad. There were people in their mid 30s who had done other things and wanted to take a break. So it was a great experience for me. And I didn't have a lot of culture shock. I absolutely loved it.
Oh my God. I really am excited about being able to expose my girls to international experiences because I just feel like there's only a limited amount you could actually learn just about life and about the world in general by staying like locally. I really feel like international travel is where it's at to really broaden your horizons. So I'm super excited to be able to expose my kids to that. So I love listening to stories like yours. But as far as teaching abroad, how much like of that language were you required to know before you went there?
Well, with Japanese, I did some back then it was like cassette tapes in my car. that I was listening to before I got there. I never studied Japanese formally before I went. And because I was teaching English and I was working with Japanese English teachers, not that much. And most people went over there not knowing Japanese. And then I picked up as I was there and took some language classes and that kind of thing. I should be better at Japanese than I am. And I've forgotten a lot because I left 15 years ago or more. But yeah, you didn't need any Japanese language skills because you had a Japanese English teacher in the room with you and you're trying to teach the conversation and also, playing games with them. So it was fun. You didn't need Japanese. So it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, I love that. Love that as a like transition or as a way to be able to explore internationally. Like, why not get paid
Mhm.
to go discover different places internationally? So I think that's amazing. But you've lived in different parts of Asia,
Mhm.
and what has kind of driven where you've stayed throughout the different countries?
Yeah, sure. When I left Japan, and just in case your listeners are interested, since this is a financial podcast, I left Japan in 2005. So it was a while ago. And I didn't save a lot of money there. The housing was paid for. They paid for my flights over. And I was able to save about 20,000 in 4 years. So about 5,000 a year, 20 years ago.
Not a
So
lot.
not a lot, not a lot, but I had the time of my life. And I was young in my 20s and I had a history degree. So it's not like I had a lot of potential in other areas. So, yeah, so that 20,000 allowed me to travel and I took a year off traveling Southeast Asia and South Asia and India and Europe. And then I went back to grad school and I got my master's degree. So I learned about in that year off, and this is something I would encourage all listeners. If you have the opportunity, it doesn't have to be a year. It could be 6 months. It could be 2 months. It could be a month. Taking some time off, some time from your life to reflect and try something new. Because as you said, when you have a new experience, you expose yourself to something different, it opens up a whole new world of possibility to you. And that's what happened during that year off. I met a woman who was teaching internationally in international schools, not in a local high school run by the government. And I learned about international school teaching. And so that really fast tracked me once I got my master's degree and teaching certification to really start earning more at these international schools. So you asked about where I went and how long I stayed. And I really did target Asia because the international schools in Asia, especially the ones that are a little bit more prestigious, they pay very well and better than other parts of the world. And I also love Asia, but coming from my background in my childhood, I was very savings focused from a childhood money wound. And so, as soon as I got my master's, after traveling around, after leaving Japan, doing a sabbatical year, I went back to Asia with the intention of saving and paying off the rest of my master's degree that I had to take loans for.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So you just stayed but in different parts of Asia. So you went from Japan, and then what country did you go to next?
So after I finished my master's degree, I went to Singapore and I stayed 6 years and I
Oh my God,
loved it. I mean,
Singapore.
and that was awesome. And I was able to save about 35,000 a year there each year. And I stayed 6 years. So I saved a good chunk of change there. And I house hacked. The school would pay for my housing and then I would rent out my extra bedroom. And some of this was coming from an unhealthy place from my childhood about I really need to save, save, save. But I was also traveling a lot. I had 13 weeks holiday a year. So I was still traveling and living my life, but I was a budget traveler and a frugal person by nature. And then I went to India for 4 years and I absolutely loved that school. It was a dream work environment. And I also house hacked there. The school paid our housing and they actually paid another teacher and I, it was a choice, but if we wanted to live together, they would give us 10,000 each a year. And so that living with her ended up, I was there 4 years, gave me another 40,000 on top of my savings. So I saved about 60,000 a year there and I stayed for 4 years. And then I decided I was pretty burned out because there was a pattern of overworking. And again, coming from the scarcity place from my childhood, that had to work hard to keep this job, to keep my savings potential, coming from fear, really unhealthy patterns. So I loved the school and it was an amazing job, but I also overworked. And so I took another sabbatical year that turned into two. And I can share about that too. But I feel like I'm talking a lot here. So I want to just take a break and
Well, I think your story is fascinating, and like I love how you just say, "Oh, I didn't really save a lot. I only save 20,000 a year." When you know, like most people don't have like enough to cover a $500 emergency, right? And so
Mhm.
I just want to know like where you learn your financial habits from. Even if you're saying that it was kind of like a scarcity mindset that you were just like saving, 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 I want to know where you got that from and how did you know to travel frugally? How did you know how to house hack to save on your housing costs and like eventually just stack so much money in savings when I know you get paid well as far as internationally, like across the board for like teachers, but still, it's still a teacher salary at the end of
Mhm.
the day. So I want to kind of like explore where did that like savings acumen come from?
Yeah, really, really an unhealthy place. So as a child, my parents had a happy marriage as far as I knew, and I felt secure. I have three older sisters, but they're all much older than me. And when I was 12, it was just my mom and dad and I, and my sisters were all in college. And just when he sat me down one day and told me he was leaving, my parents were getting a divorce. And I was shocked because they never fought. And I didn't know there were any issues there. But then he had a younger girlfriend and he didn't really wasn't very involved in the family for quite a lot of years, and he said he couldn't fully pay child support. So my mom and I went from having money to not having money and having to sell my childhood home, moving to a different state. My mom went back to college, and it was really a tough time. It was just really her and I, and she was really sad. She was in shock, but her biggest concern was money. And she shared a lot of those money concerns with me. And I felt a lot of the weight, like I felt kind of like her partner in a way. And I saw her reading financial books and just this kind of panic state of how do I support myself and my daughter? Because I relied on my husband to save for my retirement. Now I don't have anything. So I got a job right away as soon as I could. And I had two jobs during high school. Was calculating on my calculator. This will date me, but it was 1995 or 1993 actually when I got a 4.25 an hour. How many hours do I need to work to buy a car just so I can get to my job? Crappy old used car, but I loved it when I finally got it.
Of
And
course.
mhm. And then college too, my dad wasn't supporting financially and he had supported my sisters, but at that stage he just really wasn't involved. And so I was working two jobs, I worked in the dorms as an RA. I had a work, then I moved to crappy apartments and I just saved as much as I could. I went to a state school. It took me 5 years, but I got out debt free and it was much cheaper back when I went to school in the late 90s, early 2000s time period. But I was focused and I had to learn how to budget to pay my rent, pay my tuition, buy my books and all of that. So it was a gift. I'm very grateful. I don't hold any kind of grudge against my dad. He's since come around and apologized and really he lives with a lot of guilt. And so I fully forgive him for that. And I do recognize it impacted me in a lot of negative ways and it was really tough at the time, but it also brought some blessings and some good lessons in my life.
So when your mom had to make that transition, was
Mhm.
she working before or was she fully dependent on your dad?
She was fully dependent on my dad. Yeah, she came, I
Yes.
mean, mhm. And she
So I
had
can
me
see
later in
like that
life.
mindset. I can see that
Mhm.
mindset. Well, I can't be dependent on anybody, so I need to make sure I'm taking care of myself coming out of that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. She was from a different generation where she grew up in rural Texas and she had me late in life. She had my three older sisters at a more traditional age. But so she was just shocked. She never thought she would get a divorce. And yeah, she actually became a nurse. So she went back to nursing school and that was her life. And she
Yay.
was a mother baby delivery nurse too. So
Yes.
so she was working all the night shifts, doing whatever she could overtime, panic mode, just trying. And she worked till she was 71 to try to make up ground.
Wow.
Hmm.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. So I can totally understand where that mindset would come from. Listen, we this is survival. Like I can't depend on anybody else. I need to make sure that I'm taking care of me because you were thrown into a position of having to take care of yourself really, really early because your mom was transitioning herself and then you're just like, I'm not gonna be an extra burden. Like I
Hmm.
get it. And so you made it work by buying your own car. You figured out a career that you can travel but you could also save if you needed to, but you figured out a way how to do that cheaply. Like, I love all the lessons
Mhm.
despite the fact that it had to come from this place. But yeah, like you said, like, you turned that situation into something that eventually worked out well for you, and you were able to accumulate savings throughout your years as an international teacher. So what I want to know is, how did you like transition from this like aggressively savings mode to like being introduced to the financially independent community?
It took me a long time is the answer. Like it is hard to overcome this when you're hardwired to be a super saver and very frugal. It is very hard to change that scarcity mindset, especially if it's coming from a childhood wound. And so, yeah, if I can back up a little bit and I'll get to that, maybe I can tell you when I left India, I mentioned that I overworked, and I think there was an imposter syndrome I had, and there was probably a piece of unworthiness I had from seeing my dad leaving. And then I felt like the poor kid in school. And so I always kind of struggled with this identity that like I'm not worthy or something. As a young teenager, somehow it impacted me on that level. And so when I was getting these jobs at these prestigious schools, I really never felt worthy. So I just work to make myself worthy of the job, because that was my lifeline to savings and safety. But I decided to take a sabbatical year, and I was going to go to travel through Africa, and I stopped in Bali for a 10-day transformational course, and it changed my life. It was so impactful. And I actually healed my relationship to my father, and I realized that I had been single for 13 years because I did not trust men, and I believed I needed to be strong
Yeah.
and independent. And so I had a healing session that was very powerful. And I met my partner 4 days later. I decided I was ready for a partner. I called him in. I met him 4 days later. And I was 41 at this point. I'd been single in Asia for a long time. And it's good to be single too, but I was tired. I was ready for a partner after that long. So yeah, I was blissfully happy, and I decided to stay in Bali. And I spent 2 years there. I decided 1 year sabbatical turned into two, and I was so joyful and alive, riding my bike through the rice terraces and just so happy. But that fear of money, of spending for 2 years and not having any money coming in, really started to was there, that demon on my shoulder again. And so I saw a job for an international school, and I convinced my partner it's a good idea to move from Bali in nature to go back to Bangkok, a big city, and do this international school job. And I saw that I could save $90,000 a year there. And so I put that in my compound interest calculator, and I started figuring out how much. And so I couldn't say no to that, I felt. But I was really only choosing that job for the money. That was the only reason. And I got to Bangkok, and even though I had loved international school teaching before, it was no longer a fit for me after living 2 years in Bali and really seeing another way of life that was more balanced, living closer to nature, all of those things. And I fell flat on my face.
Mm.
It was not pretty.
Wow.
I
What
went through,
happened?
yeah, I mean, I went through depression. I
Hmm.
was having anxiety after not teaching for 2 years. I had this major imposter syndrome about the new job. I have to prove myself, build my reputation with all new coworkers. And I went into that old pattern of overworking. And especially because I hadn't been working, I just was waking up at 3 in the morning, getting up to work in the middle of the night. I don't know, just really unhealthy patterns of how do I prove my worth as I just work harder and harder and harder and double down and hustle more. And it didn't have to be that way. It wasn't that way for all other teachers, but my own neurosis was
And
did not.
nobody was putting that pressure on you to do those things, correct?
No, no. I mean, it's always a
Okay.
lot of work anytime you start a new school because the
Hmm.
curriculum's all different and you're building your materials. So the first year is always really hard. But yeah, and my partner thought, "Who are you? You were
I
this like
know.
flowy, happy person in Bali, and suddenly you don't have time for me. You don't even have time. You're edgy. You're anxious. You're." And he went back to Bali. I didn't have time
Hmm.
for him in Bangkok. And so it was having an effect on my mental well-being, my physical health, my relationship. After being single for 13 years, I was putting it all on the line for money, you know.
Mm.
And I actually, even though I was miserable, I decided to renew for a second year because $90,000 compounded over time. Like, I was very trapped by that fear of not having money or financial ruin. Or my story from childhood was your financial situation can be okay and then overnight it can disappear. That's what I learned as a 12-year-old. And so I had
Mm,
that fear. And so I know this is a long answer to your question, but
it's fine. It's beautiful.
that's where in that moment of really like desperation and depression is when I went searching online and I found the fire movement. And it was like a light at the end of a tunnel. It was like a life raft. It's like suddenly there's another way, there's another possibility.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. But thank you for being so vulnerable and sharing that, because we can all understand like where that motivation to focus on savings. And I just want to clarify one thing. So when you're saying savings, are you talking about putting money into a savings account, or were you investing this money the whole time?
Yeah, I was investing the whole time. I saw my
Okay.
mom when I was a teenager reading these investment books, and I read it. I was reading investment
Okay.
books when I was a teenager. So I got started in my Roth IRA when I was living in Japan. So I was
Okay.
always doing low cost index funds.
Wow. So that's amazing. So you knew how to do that
Mhm.
from before you got introduced to the fire movement. So that is spectacular, because we see like an propensity, especially for women, to just save money into savings accounts. And that's why I wanted to make sure to clarify that no, your money was actually compounding and growing in investments from the time you started saving as a teacher, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. I
Yeah. I
love
really
it.
learned
All
the
right.
lesson. I cannot depend on a man, and I need to be educated myself as a woman. That's so important.
I love that. I love
Mhm.
that. But what about discovering the fire movement really made the biggest impact on you to kind of shift the way you thought about how you were living?
Okay, yeah, again, I'm a slow learner and I'm a little stubborn and hard-headed. So it took a while because I didn't know about fire. I was always saving and investing, but I didn't have any idea how much money do I need to retire. I thought it was maybe $5 million was my goal. And I had projected it out if I say. So really learning about the 4% rule and knowing how much, because I had lived those 2 sabbatical years in Bali before I went to Bangkok, knowing how much it cost me to live there, and that was my best life. And I had a good nest egg already, so realizing, oh, I'm actually better off than I realized. But
Yeah.
it took a while of reading a lot of books and listening to a lot of, and I went down the rabbit hole, and I was depressed, and it was just like, this is my lifeline, so let me listen and read everything. And it was also during the pandemic, so there was not a lot of other community around me, I guess. So I discovered that I was okay, but it took some time because again, I said I renewed my job for a second year, which I planned to go there just for 1 year. I convinced my partner, well, let's just go 1 year. And then I renewed it. And then I was deeply unhappy and I quit and I broke contract, which was super scary because I knew that that would maybe blacklist me for all international schools forever because it's a kind of a small network. But I
Yeah.
actually quit and broke contract after I already signed a second year contract. And then I actually went back in 4 months later and begged for my job back. And then I worked that second year. And the second year was better, and I learned to balance it a little bit more. And we were teaching online, and I actually got to teach from an island in southern Thailand, and my partner came over there. So it ended up being okay in the end, but not because I made smart choices along the way. Mostly just out of luck and those kind of things. But yeah, it took me a while, and a lot of it was that knowledge, the fire knowledge, but it took just a while to change that mentality, and also diving into mindset, like knowing the nuts and bolts, the knowledge, but it's not only the information, it's also the transformation, and seeing those childhood beliefs of, money could disappear at any moment. I have to be strong and independent, only depend on myself, even though I've got a partner now and we've been together for several years now. Just allowing myself to look at some of those subconscious beliefs and start to change them. So I did a lot of belief work as well. And then
Oh,
time,
yeah, I
time
love that.
helped.
Yeah, I love that. And it's like you had the technical know-how and the skills, but what was really missing was that component of, first of all, you are okay financially. You're in a
Mhm.
way better place than you thought. But then also being like, okay, like I can kind of release some of these beliefs around money that has kind of gotten me trapped in situations where I would give up living my best life for money. And I like that you like use this discovery to heal those beliefs. I think it's fabulous. Do you remember how much like it cost you per year to live in Bali during your sabbatical years?
Yeah, I would say I spend on the average day, I spend about $50 because I'm still in Bali. And then
Yeah.
I like to pad in a lot of extra because there
Hmm.
are always courses. I love to do courses. I'm a nut for this kind of thing. So I like to pad in several thousands of dollars for that. So I would say in a year, my daily budget added up plus insurance, plus these higher price ticket items like courses that I love to do. It's going to cost me $25,000 a year. That's a very fat life. That's just for me because my partner also is spending about that much. So we're not living on the cheap in Bali. I mean, you can definitely live cheaper than that. But that's going out to eat twice a day. That's me going to yoga, going to classes multiple times a day. I often go to more than one class in a day between yoga and something else. So that's like the most luxurious life that I can have there. Really, there's nothing else I would really want there.
What were your housing? What did your housing look like?
So, I mean, we still have our place in the rice fields and we don't own it. We rent
Hmm.
monthly. So it can be about 400 to 600 a month depending on how many rooms you get. It can be even more than that. I mean, of course, people can spend $2,000 a month for a huge palatial place with a private pool and all of that. But, we typically get a 2 bedroom, 2 bath place. We like to have our own space. So it's usually around 400 to 600 a month. And that's divided in half. And that's not the price you'll find if you come on holiday and you're just looking for a nightly rental. But if you're there for a while and you're able to negotiate for a monthly price and you can scope out and really find some deals, then that's what we pay. Prices have gone up a little bit with Airbnb and after the pandemic and that, but it's right around 500 or 600, I guess I would say now a month. And then we split that. So it's pretty reasonable.
That sounds very, very reasonable. So now I want to transition into the FI Freedom Retreat and how that idea came to you and how you're curating this beautiful experience for people in Bali. And this is your first year doing it, correct?
Yes, yes.
And you have got some heavy hitters there. Let's dive into the FI Freedom Retreat, like how you were inspired to create it and what is it going to look like for people. And let me just say, it is phenomenal to know that this is your first year hosting this retreat and it is already sold out and you have got some incredible people attending and some incredible speakers. So let's talk about it. I'm super excited for our listeners to hear about it.
Thank you. Yeah, you asked first about the idea and where did it come to me. And it was really in those kind of dark days when I was depressed in Bangkok during the pandemic and listening to all of these fire podcasts. And I heard about Camp FI and economy. And I thought, I want something on this side of the world. I want community. I want to connect to fire people. And I loved Bali. And so that was my idea back then was I want to bring something to Bali and this side of the world. And then I quit my job in Bangkok finally. And I went back to the US. My dad had a stroke. And so I came back to
Sorry.
help a lot with that. And during that time, I went to a lot of fire events. I've been to 8 between economy and I met you in person at economy, which is super fun. And I
Yes.
love economy. So if listeners haven't been to economy or Camp FI or Camp Mustache or Fin Talks, those are all wonderful events. And so I went to 8 events and I'm going to Camp Mustache, at the end of the month as well. So that'll be my 9th event. But going to these in-person events, there's something so special about the community. They're creative, they're supportive, they're such out of the box thinkers, they're very helpful and inspiring. People logged into my Vanguard account, they looked at my asset allocation, they talked through my money fears with me, they looked at my spreadsheets, they looked at my numbers. I was so touched by how supportive people were. And really, I just want to give back to this community and create this opportunity for other people as well. And I have a dream of uniting the fire communities in other parts of the world and getting Australians and Americans and Singaporeans and people who live on that side of the world. It's a long way to fly to a fire conference in the US. But then a lot of people are from the US are coming over too. So it's going to be fun to get people together from all different places.
Yes, I love that. And I was just writing down like all the events all the fire events that you attend stateside. I'm going to list those out too, just in case people were interested in attending those over here. But just walk us through what the event is going to be comprised of. Like, how is it all set up in the beautiful country of Bali?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm super excited about the speakers. I really wanted to bring in people that are have something really different to offer to the audience and may not people may have not have heard from them before. So I do have some heavy hitters, and there's also some people that will bring in something unique and new, which is I think very exciting. And I've got some non-US speakers too. So I think that's going to be fun for the audience. We're going to have amazing speakers. The participants who are coming, I know a lot of them, and they are amazing. So there's podcasters in the audience, and there's very, very money savvy people. So at these events that I've gone to, I learn a lot from the speakers, but I learn just as much from the other participants and the conversations we have around the pool. And we're going to be doing amazing excursions to see rice field walks and volcano views and monkey forest, going to the monkey forest and water temple blessings. And so we're going to have cultural activities and adventures and community time. And we're going to go to K-check dances where they dance on hot coals and put fire down their mouth and their throat. So there's so many fun things we're going to do. And the power of community is what's incredible. I think that that's really what these events are about. It's about connecting to like-minded people, being inspired on your fire journey, especially sometimes we're in that middle part where it can be a little bit of a lonely, isolating journey. And to be able to connect to others who are on that journey, who may have an idea or perspective that, at least that's what I found, I hadn't thought of, something that I hadn't seen. There's no price tag you can put on that. Because I feel like for me, it's fast-tracked my life and fast-tracked my journey and my awareness of what is possible. And so I feel like it's going to be amazing. And a lot of people are coming and staying for multiple weeks. And we're going to down to the beach afterwards. Even after it ends, people are still going to be hanging out and building community together in a smaller group if they don't have to rush back to work. So I'm excited to show people Bali because I love the community of friends I have there too. And there's a lot of digital nomads and entrepreneurs. And so it's cool if people can stay around. They're going to be exposed to the fire community, but they also can meet a lot of digital nomads and entrepreneurs and people who are doing pretty inspiring things in Bali. And then the Balinese people are amazing. So it's going to be great all the way around.
Oh my God. It sounds so exciting. And like, why not stay in Bali longer if you're going to travel across the world?
Yes.
Make it a vacation for real. So I love it. And I just know it's going to be an incredible event. I'm just mind blown about like how you were able to put this together. And I just want as many people to experience it as possible. But this year is sold out. Do you have the dates for next year?
I'm thinking I probably will do it again in September next year. Yeah, it's a great month to visit. Beautiful weather, and it's not peak season either, which is quite nice. But I'm not confirmed. I think I'll wait till this one. It's the end of September this year, and then I'll make a plan for next year. But I would encourage listeners to go down to the footer of my website, which is Five Freedom Retreats with an S. Sign up for the mailing list because it sold out very fast this year, and they can go ahead and sign up now so they can be the first to know about the dates for next year once I release those. But I would love to welcome them to Bali. I'd love to welcome you to Bali if it aligns for you in the
Yes,
future.
yes, yes.
So yeah.
Yeah, I am trying to make sure that me and my girls get to Bali
Mhm.
because I know it'll be an incredible experience, and to be able to be there with you, Amy, I think because of your how long you've lived there and just to be exposed to your community would be amazing. So,
Mm.
yes, we are putting that in the works. Well, thank you, Amy, so much for joining us, and make sure you guys are following Amy and going over to her website of the FI Freedom Retreat and then signing up for her mailing list so you get more information. As you can tell, she's an incredible person because of how many people just like naturally gravitate to her, how easy it was for her to sell out this amazing experience, which is no small feat. And I just want to give you your Flowers for that, Amy, because listen, I tried to curate retreats and they are very, very hard. So for you to be able to knock this one out the park on the first time, I think goes to show what an amazing person you are. And so I'm super honored to be able to know you. And I'm looking forward to our audience getting to know you better. But the best way to do that is to make sure you sign up for the mailing list to get more information about what Amy is doing in this world. So thanks again, Amy, so much for being here.
Thank you, Nasima. I really appreciate what you're doing and for creating financial literacy in the world. And I so admire your journey. You're incredible, paying off $1 million of debt in 2 years. So important. And sharing this message of financial freedom and literacy with your audience. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Aw, thank you.